Most men would have screamed. Most men would have thrown the DNA results on the table the second they opened the envelope. They would have packed a bag, stormed out, and filed for divorce the next morning. And honestly, they would have lost everything. I didn't scream. I didn't pack a bag. When I found out the truth that the two beautiful twin boys sleeping in the nursery weren't mine, I did something that might make you think I'm a psychopath. I walked into the kitchen, kissed my wife on the forehead, and asked her what she wanted for dinner. Then I started a timer. A 5-year timer. Why 5 years? Because in my state, if you unknowingly raise a child for a certain amount of time, you are locked in for life. She thought she had me trapped. She thought she had the perfect payday locked down. But she made one critical mistake. She didn't know that I was reading her diary. She didn't know that I had cloned her phone. And she definitely didn't know that every single business trip I took for the last 60 months was actually me building a case so airtight that when the trap finally snapped shut, she wouldn't just lose the marriage, she would lose her freedom. My name is David, and if you're watching this thinking you can get away with lying to a man who plays the long game, you better take notes, because this is how you destroy a liar without ever raising your voice. Let's go back to the beginning. 6 years ago, I was 32, running a mid-sized logistics company, and I was lonely. You know that specific kind of loneliness where you have money, you have the house, you have the car, but the silence in your living room at 8 p.m. is deafening? That was me. Enter Sarah. I met her at a networking event in Chicago. She was electric. Red dress, sharp wit, the kind of woman who commanded the room without trying. We talked for 3 hours straight that night. She told me she was in marketing, that she loved old jazz records, and that she wanted a family more than anything in the world. Looking back now, I realized it wasn't a conversation. It was an interview. She was profiling me. She was finding out my net worth, my emotional triggers, and my weaknesses. And like an idiot, I handed her the blueprint to my soul. We moved fast, too fast. Within 3 months, she practically lived at my place. Within 5 months, we were talking about marriage. I remember my best friend, Mike, pulling me aside at a barbecue. He said, "Dave, she's great, but doesn't it feel a little scripted, like she's too perfect?" I laughed at him. I told him he was just jealous because he was still swiping left on Tinder while I had found the one. Listen to me closely right now. If your best friend, who has known you for decades, gets a bad vibe from your new partner, do not ignore it. If you've ever had a gut feeling that you ignored because you wanted to be loved, hit that subscribe button right now, because we need to stick together. I ignored Mike. And 4 weeks later, Sarah dropped the bomb. It was a Tuesday. I came home and there was a gift box on the kitchen counter. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes and a positive pregnancy test. She was crying, happy tears. "We're going to be parents, Dave," she sobbed into my shoulder. "We're going to have a family." I felt this rush of pure adrenaline, fear, excitement, love. I picked her up and spun her around. I promised her right then and there that I would take care of everything. But here is the first red flag I missed. According to the dates, she was 6 weeks pregnant. But just 2 weeks prior, she had been at a bachelorette party in Miami where she told me she got blackout drunk. When I asked her about it later that night, just casually, she froze. Just for a microsecond. Her eyes flickered to the left. "Oh, I faked drinking, silly," she said, squeezing my hand. "I had a feeling I might be pregnant, so I was pouring the shots into the potted plants. I wanted to be sure before I told you." It was a smooth lie, plausible, even. I bought it. I bought the ring, I bought the house with the bigger yard. We got married at the courthouse 2 weeks later because she didn't want to stress the baby with a big wedding. 7 months later, the twins were born, Leo and Sam. I cut the cords. I held them. I looked into their eyes and I swore I saw my grandfather's nose on Leo. I saw my own chin on Sam. The brain is a funny thing. It fills in the gaps to show you what you desperately want to see. For the first year, life was chaos, but it was good. Sarah stayed home with the boys. I worked double shifts to cover the new expenses. I was exhausted, but I was a dad. I had made it. But then the cracks started to show. It wasn't anything big at first. It was the phone guarding. You know the move, where they set the phone face down on the table every single time? Or when they take it into the bathroom for a shower that lasts 45 minutes but the water never runs? One night, about 14 months after the twins were born, Sarah left her phone unlocked on the couch while she ran to grab the mail. I wasn't a snooper, I swear. I just wanted to check the time. But the screen was open to a WhatsApp conversation with a contact saved as "Do Not Answer." The message from Sarah read, "He has no idea. Just stay patient. The trust fund vests in 4 years. We stick to the plan." My blood turned to ice. The trust fund vests in 4 years. I froze. I heard the front door handle turning. She was coming back. I had half a second to make a choice. Confront her? Demand to know who Do Not Answer was? Ask about the trust fund? No. If I confronted her now, she'd delete the texts. She'd gaslight me. She'd say it was a joke or a misunderstanding. She would go underground. I put the phone down, exactly how she left it. She walked in, smiling, tossing a stack of bills on the counter. "Hey babe, did you see the electric bill? It's crazy this month." I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see the mother of my children. I saw a stranger. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile that felt like it was cracking my face. "I'll take care of it." That night, while she slept, I went into the bathroom and threw up. Then I washed my face, looked in the mirror, and made a vow. I needed to know who Do Not Answer was. And more importantly, I needed to know if those boys upstairs were actually mine. Little did I know, the answer to that question would lead me into a dark underworld of fraud, fake identities, and a betrayal so deep that standard infidelity looks like a playground game. This wasn't just cheating. This was a heist. And I was the bank. Step 1 was data collection. I knew I couldn't just accuse her. Sarah was smart. She'd cover her tracks. If I asked for her phone password, she'd change it. If I asked to see her bank statements, she'd say I was being controlling. I needed to be a ghost in my own house. I started small. I bought a hidden voice recorder, one of those tiny ones that looks like a USB drive, and I plugged it into the back of the smart TV in the living room. It had a 30-day battery life and voice activation. For the first 3 days, I got nothing. Just her watching reality TV, talking to her mom, normal stuff. I almost convinced myself I was paranoid. Maybe the text message meant something else. Maybe trust fund was a metaphor. But on day 4, I struck gold. I was at work listening to the audio files on my lunch break, headphones on, sitting in my car. The timestamp was 10:15 a.m. The boys were napping. Sarah was on the phone. Her voice was different than the one she used with me. It was colder, sharper. "I told you to stop pushing," she hissed. "He's working himself into an early grave for us. Just let the idiot pay off the mortgage. Once the boys turn 5, the prenup clause expires and I get half the equity regardless of fault. Do you want the money or not?" I sat there in my car, staring at the steering wheel, my hands shaking so hard I couldn't hold my phone. The idiot. That's what I was to her. An ATM with a pulse. But then she said something that made the world stop spinning. "They look just like you, you know," she laughed. "Especially Leo. Every time David says Leo looks like his grandpa, I have to bite my tongue not to laugh. It's pathetic." That was the moment. The exact moment the last shred of love I had for her evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was stealing my life. She was letting me raise another man's children, letting me bond with them, letting me pour my heart into them, all while laughing at me behind her back.
I didn't go back to work that afternoon. I drove to a pharmacy 3 towns over.
I bought a home DNA test kit. Not the Ancestry ones. Those take too long and notify you via email. I bought the discreet Paternity kind, the kind you mail off to a private lab. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep. I crept into the nursery. The twins were sleeping soundly. They looked like angels. My heart broke into a million pieces. I didn't want this to be true. I wanted to be wrong so badly. I gently swabbed the inside of Leo's cheek, then Sam's. I put the swabs in the tubes, sealed the envelope, and hid it in my briefcase. The next morning, I mailed it. Then the waiting began. 7 days. 7 days of waking up next to her, making coffee, kissing her goodbye, and playing the role of the happy husband. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. I channeled every ounce of rage into discipline. When the email finally pinged on my phone, I was in a meeting. "Results ready," the subject line read. I excused myself. I walked into the bathroom, locked the stall, and opened the PDF. Probability of paternity, 0.0. Not unlikely, 0. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt clear. The fog was gone. I knew exactly what I had to do. I couldn't just leave. Leaving was too easy. Leaving meant she got child support. Leaving meant she got half the house. Leaving meant she won. No, I needed to destroy her. Legally, financially, socially. But I had a problem. A big one. I consulted a lawyer the next day, a shark named Peterson. I paid him $500 for an hour of his time, and he gave me the worst news of my life. "David," he said, taking off his glasses, "you signed the birth certificates. In the eyes of the state, you are the father. It doesn't matter if they aren't biologically yours. You have established paternity by conduct. If you divorce her now, the judge will likely order you to pay child support until they are 18, because you've been acting as their father for over a year." "So I'm trapped?" I asked, feeling the walls closing in. "Not necessarily," Peterson said, leaning forward. "There is a loophole, but it's risky, and it takes time. You have to prove fraud, not just infidelity. You have to prove that she knowingly, maliciously deceived you for financial gain. You need a paper trail, you need a confession, and most importantly, you need to wait until she makes a move on the assets." "How long?" I asked. "The trust fund she mentioned," Peterson said. "When does she think it vests?" 4 years, I said. "Then you wait 4 years, he said. "You let her think she's winning. You let her build her house of cards as high as possible, and right when she reaches for the money, you pull the bottom card." 4 years. I had to live a lie for 4 years. I had to sleep next to the enemy for 1,460 days. I looked Peterson in the eye. "Okay," I said, "let's get to work." 3 months into this nightmare, I started the surveillance phase. The voice recorder was amateur hour. I needed pro-level access. I installed a keylogger on the family computer. I set up a mirrored backup of her iCloud. But the real breakthrough came when I found the burner phone. She kept it taped under the bottom drawer of her vanity. Classic hiding spot, really. I found it when I was fixing a loose handle on the drawer. I waited until she was at yoga, and I booted it up. It was password protected, of course. But Sarah was lazy. The passcode was the twins' birthday. I was in. And what I found in that phone wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. I opened the messages. The contact wasn't saved as a name anymore. It was just a string of emojis, a money bag, and a palm tree. But the profile picture was a selfie of a guy I recognized instantly. Greg. Her high school sweetheart, who she swore was out of the picture years ago, a guy who hadn't held a steady job since the Bush administration. I scrolled up to the beginning of the chat thread. It went back years, before the marriage, before the pregnancy, and there it was, in black and white, the smoking gun. "He bought the ring," Sarah wrote. Dated 6 years ago. He's such a pushover. I can't believe how easy this is. Greg replied, "Just stick to the plan, babe. Once you get that ring, we are set. Just close your eyes and think of me." I felt bile rising in my throat. I wanted to throw the phone through the wall, but I kept reading. I had to know everything. I scrolled to the dates around the conception of the twins. "I think I'm ovulating," she wrote to Greg. "Come over. David is at the warehouse until 10. 2 weeks later, "The test is positive. It's yours, Greg. I know it is. But David thinks it's his. He's so happy it's pathetic. We have our ticket." Greg's response made my fists clench so hard my nails dug into my palms. "That idiot is going to pay for my kids to go to college. Good work, babe. Now we just wait for the payout." They called me the Wallet. That was their nickname for me. Not David, not my husband, just the Wallet. I took photos of every single message with my own phone, hundreds of screenshots. I recorded videos of me scrolling through the chat to prove the timestamp and authenticity. Then I put the burner phone back exactly where I found it, tape and all. I walked into the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. The man looking back at me was different. The softness was gone. The kindness was gone. I was a soldier now, and I was behind enemy lines. Could you do it? Ask yourself honestly. Could you walk downstairs, see the woman who just bragged about using you as a financial host for her lover's children, and ask her how her yoga class was? Because that's exactly what I did. I walked into the kitchen as she came through the door. She looked fresh, glowing, happy. She kissed me on the cheek. "Hey, honey," she chirped. "Yoga was amazing. I feel so centered." "That's great," I said, my voice steady, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "You look beautiful." She smiled, a predatory smile. "You're so sweet to me, David. I don't deserve you." No, I thought, you really don't. The next 3 years were a blur of psychological torture. I call it the grind. Every day was a test of my acting skills. I had to be the doting husband. I had to buy her anniversary gifts. I had to go to dinners with her parents, who I now suspected knew the truth, and smile while they made jokes about how the twins got their height from their side of the family. But the hardest part wasn't Sarah. It was the boys, Leo and Sam. They were innocent. They didn't ask to be part of a con. They called me daddy. They ran to me when they scraped their knees. They drew me pictures of us as a family, stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Every time I looked at them, I saw Greg. I saw the deception, but I also saw 2 little boys who loved me. There were nights I sat in my car in the driveway for an hour because I couldn't bring myself to go inside. I felt like a fraud. I was planning to blow up their world, and they were hugging my legs. If you've ever had to make a decision that you knew would hurt innocent people, but you had to do it to save yourself, tell me I'm not alone in the comments, because the guilt almost broke me. But then Sarah would do something to remind me why I was fighting. Like the time she accidentally crashed my brand new sedan. She called me, crying hysterically. I rushed to the scene. She was fine. The car was totaled. But later that night, I checked the tracker on her primary phone, the one she didn't know I had cloned. She hadn't been running errands. She had been at a motel on the outskirts of town. Greg was in town. I checked the dashcam footage from the cloud. She didn't crash by accident. She was arguing on the phone with Greg, screaming that he needed to be patient, and she ran a red light out of pure rage. She risked her life and the lives of others because her boyfriend was getting impatient for my money. That was the fuel I needed. I stopped feeling guilty. I started getting strategic. I met with Peterson, my lawyer, every quarter in a dive bar 2 towns over so we wouldn't be seen. We built the file, the dossier, we called it. "We need to nail the financial fraud," Peterson told me during year 3. Infidelity gets you a divorce. Fraud gets you an annulment and damages. We need to prove she is actively siphoning marital assets to him. So I set a trap. I call it the honeypot. I came home one evening looking stressed but excited. I told Sarah I had a massive business opportunity, a silent investment that would triple our money in 6 months, but it required liquid cash. "How much?" she asked, her eyes lighting up. "50,000, I lied, "but I need to move it into a separate holding account so it doesn't get tied up in the company taxes." She took the bait instantly. "You should do it," she said. "Think of the boy's future." I opened a joint account with her. I put $50,000 of my money in it, money I had actually borrowed from my own business line of credit. I gave her the access codes. "Don't touch this," I said. "It needs to sit for 6 months." I knew she couldn't help herself. Greg was in debt. I had run a background check on him. He owed money to some bad people. 2 weeks later, the notification popped up on my phone. A transfer of $5,000. Then another for $2,000. She was draining the investment account to pay off Greg's loan sharks. I didn't stop her. I let her take it all, every cent, because every transfer was a nail in her coffin. It was wire fraud. It was theft. And since she was transferring it to an account linked to Greg, I now had a direct financial link between my wife and her lover. The paper trail was complete. Now I just had to wait for the clock to run out, the 5-year mark, the date where the state law regarding paternity shifted, but more importantly, the date the trust fund she thought existed was supposed to vest. Let me explain the trust fund lie. Early in our marriage, I had mentioned a family trust that I couldn't access until I was 40. It was true, but the amount was small, maybe 10 grand. But Sarah had inflated it in her mind. She thought it was millions. She and Greg were waiting for my 40th birthday. My 40th birthday was 1 week away. The tension in the house was palpable. Sarah was vibrating with anticipation. She was being extra nice, cooking my favorite meals, buying me clothes. She was grooming the pig for slaughter. 2 days before my birthday, she walked into my office. She was holding a folder. "David," she said, putting on her serious face, "we need to talk about the future. With the trust fund coming through, I think we should update our estate planning, just to protect the boys." She slid a document across the desk. It was a post-nuptial agreement. I read it. It was bold. It stated that in the event of a divorce, all assets, including future inheritances and trust disbursements, would be split 70-30 in her favor for the primary custody of the children. She was trying to lock in the money before she filed for divorce. She thought I was stupid. She thought I was so blinded by love that I would sign anything to make her happy. I looked up at her. She was smiling. That same sweet, fake smile she had worn for 5 years. "You're right," I said, uncapping a pen. "We should definitely protect the boys." I hovered the pen over the signature line. I saw her breath hitch. She was watching the pen like a hawk. She was so close to the finish line, she could taste it. Then I put the pen down. "Actually," I said, leaning back in my chair, "I should probably have my lawyer look at this first. Just a formality. I'll take it to him on Monday." Her face fell. Just for a second. The mask slipped. "Monday? But your birthday is Sunday. We wanted to have this done before the celebration." "Monday is fine," I said, staring her dead in the eyes. "What's the rush, Sarah? We have the rest of our lives." She swallowed hard. "Right, of course. No rush." She left the office. I waited until I heard her footsteps fade down the hall. Then I picked up the phone and called Peterson. "It's time," I said. "Prepare the papers. We serve her on Sunday." "On your birthday?" Peterson asked. "Exactly," I said. "She wants a celebration? I'll give her one she'll never forget." The morning of my 40th birthday arrived. The sun was shining, the birds were singing. It was the day of judgment. Sarah had planned a party in the backyard. Friends, family, neighbors, everyone was coming. It was the perfect stage. She wanted to play the perfect wife one last time before she took my money. Little did she know, the guests I had invited weren't there for cake. At 2 p.m., the party was in full swing. Sarah was holding court by the pool, looking glamorous in a white sundress. I was manning the grill, flipping burgers, watching the gate. Then the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Sarah yelled, playing the hostess. She walked to the front door. I wiped my hands on my apron and followed her, staying a few steps back. She opened the door. Standing there wasn't a guest. It was a process server, a large man with a thick envelope. "Sarah Miller?" he asked. "Yes," she said, confused. "You've been served," he said, shoving the envelope into her chest. "Serve?" She laughed nervously, looking back at me. "David, is this a joke? Is this a birthday prank?" I stepped forward. I didn't smile. I didn't shout. I just looked at her with 5 years of suppressed rage burning in my eyes. "No, Sarah," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter of the party like a knife. "It's not a prank. It's an eviction notice." The music stopped. The guests went silent. Sarah looked down at the envelope. She ripped it open. Her eyes scanned the first page. Petition for annulment based on fraud. Paternity test results? 0%. She went pale, ghost white. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with terror. "David," she whispered, "what is this?" "I know," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I know about Greg. I know about the burner phone. I know about the wallet. I know about the fake pregnancy timeline. And I know that those boys aren't mine." "David, stop," she hissed, reaching for my arm. "Not here, please." "Don't touch me," I said, recoiling. "You wanted a show, Sarah? You wanted the trust fund? Well, here is the reality check. There is no trust fund. I spent it on lawyers, on private investigators, and on ensuring that you don't get a single dime." She looked like she was going to faint, but then the anger took over. The mask came off completely. Her face twisted into a snarl. "You bastard!" she screamed, lunging at me. "You led me on. You made me wait 5 years." "I made you wait," I laughed. It was a cold, dark sound. "I was just following the plan, Sarah. Just stay patient, remember? The idiot is working himself into an early grave." She froze. She realized I was quoting her texts. "Get out," I said, "now. You have 1 hour to pack a bag and leave. The police are already on their way to escort you off the property. And Greg? He's probably having a bad day too. I sent a copy of the file to his parole officer this morning." That was the moment. The look of absolute defeat on her face. It was worth every second of the last 5 years. But the story doesn't end there, because when you corner a rat, it bites. And Sarah wasn't done yet. She didn't leave quietly. Of course she didn't. Narcissists don't just walk away when the curtain falls. They try to burn down the theater. As the police cruiser rolled up to the curb, blue lights flashing against the suburban afternoon sun, Sarah tried one last Hail Mary. She fell to her knees in the driveway, right in front of the neighbors, and started wailing. Not crying, wailing. She screamed that I was abusive, that I was having a mental breakdown, that I was stealing her babies. For a second, I saw the neighbors look at me with doubt. That's the scary thing about master manipulators. They can make the sane look crazy just by adjusting the volume. But I didn't engage. I didn't yell back. I just handed the officer the court order, granting me temporary exclusive possession of the home due to the theft investigation. "Ma'am, you need to come with us," the officer said, helping her up. You can collect your personal belongings later with a police escort." She looked at me through the window of the cruiser as they drove away. It wasn't a look of sadness. It was a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. She realized the ATM was permanently out of order. The next 6 months were a war of attrition. Sarah didn't have money, but she had a public defender and a lot of audacity. She launched a smear campaign on social media. She wrote long, tearful posts about how her controlling husband threw her and her children on his birthday. She left out the DNA results. She left out Greg. She left out the $50,000 she stole. People I had known for years blocked me. I got hate mail. I got death threats. "How could you abandon those boys?" strangers messaged me. It was tempting to post the evidence, to leak the texts, to clear my name instantly. But Peterson told me to hold the line. "Save it for the judge," he said. "Let her dig the hole deeper. Let her commit perjury." So I stayed silent. I let the world think I was the villain. The court date finally arrived. It was a gray, rainy Tuesday. Sarah walked in wearing a modest outfit I had paid for, looking frail and victimized. Greg was there too, sitting in the back, looking nervous. He wasn't in jail yet, but the investigation was looming. Sarah took the stand first. She cried on cue. She told the judge that I was a father figure to the boys, that biology didn't matter, and that I owed her spousal support to maintain the lifestyle she was accustomed to. She claimed the stolen money was a gift. She claimed the texts were taken out of context. Then it was my turn. We didn't just show the judge the DNA results. We played the audio. The courtroom went dead silent as my voice recorder, the one from the living room 3 years ago, filled the room. Sarah's voice, sharp and cruel, echoed off the wood paneling. "The idiot is working himself into an early grave for us. Do you want the money or not?" I saw the judge's face harden. He looked from the speaker to Sarah. She was shrinking in her seat. Then we showed the texts, the wallet nickname, the timeline of the fake pregnancy, and finally the bank transfers proving she wired my money directly to Greg's loan shark. Peterson stood up and delivered the final blow. "Your Honor, this was not a marriage. This was a long-con criminal enterprise disguised as a domestic partnership. My client didn't just suffer infidelity. He suffered grand larceny and emotional fraud of the highest degree." The judge didn't take long. He granted the annulment, not a divorce, an annulment. In the eyes of the law, the marriage never existed. There would be no alimony, no asset split. The house was mine, the car was mine. And because the gift of $50,000 was proven to be obtained under false pretenses, Sarah was ordered to pay restitution. A judgment was entered against her. She left that courtroom not with a payout, but with a mountain of debt. But then came the hardest part, the part that keeps me up at night. The judge looked at me over his spectacles. "Mr. Miller," he said, "regarding the children, since the annulment declares the marriage void and the DNA proves no biological relation, you have no legal obligation to Leo and Sam. You are free to sever all times." The room was quiet. I looked back at Sarah. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the table, defeated. I thought about the boys. I thought about teaching them to ride bikes. I thought about reading them bedtime stories. I loved them. God help me. Headphones on, sitting in my car. The timestamp was 10:15 a.m. But I knew that if I stayed in their lives, I would stay in her life. She would use them as pawns forever. She would use visitation to manipulate me, to ask for money, to keep the drama alive. Greg would be the one raising them with my money. I had to cut the infection out completely, even if it meant cutting off a part of my own heart. "I understand, Your Honor. I said, my voice cracking for the first time in 5 years. I request a clean break. Walking out of that courthouse was the heaviest feeling of my life. I saw Sarah in the hallway. She didn't scream this time. She just looked at me. "They ask about you," she said softly. "The boys. They ask where Daddy is." It was a dart aimed straight for my soul. But I saw the flicker in her eyes. She was still testing, still looking for a weakness, still trying to find a way back in. "Tell them the truth," I said, buttoning my coat. "Tell them their father is waiting in the parking lot. His name is Greg." I walked away. I didn't look back. It's been 2 years since that day. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts. I moved to a condo in the city. I focused on my business. I started dating again, slowly. A woman who has her own money and her own life and who leaves her phone unlocked on the coffee table because she has nothing to hide. Sarah is working double shifts at a diner to pay off the judgment. Greg is back in prison for a parole violation involving illegal gambling. The boys, I hear they are with Sarah's mother. I send an anonymous envelope of cash every Christmas to the grandmother, marked for the boys. It's not child support. It's just hope. I know some of you are going to judge me. You're going to say I should have stayed for the kids. You're going to say I was cold. And maybe you're right. But I saved my life. I reclaimed my dignity. And I refuse to be a victim in my own story. If there is one thing I want you to take away from this, it's this. The truth is expensive. It cost me 5 years of my life. It cost me a marriage. It cost me the innocence of fatherhood. But a lie costs you everything. So, check the phones. Trust your gut. And if you ever find yourself staring at a DNA result that breaks your world apart, don't scream, don't pack a bag. Start a timer. Smash that like button if you think I did the right thing, and comment your story below. I read every single one.